Hi again, Annabeth here. I'm going to be talking with you about some examples about how to engage different stakeholders and the practical applications of considering stakeholders as a scientist in the research that you do, and in relation to issues as well. So moving on from what we discussed, and I discussed in the last short presentation, we looked at why considering stakeholders is important, how to identify them, and now I'm going to be looking at some specifically engagement examples. So we've looked at how to identify them. Does anyone care? Does anyone stand to benefit? Is anyone that's going to be impacted? And then we looked at the continuum of community engagement. So if you've missed that presentation, go back and watch it. And what this means for designing impactful science. So now I'm going to talk to you about the research that I'm doing. So it's a national survey project, and we're working in 6 small regions, in one in every state. Some of them are pretty big regions actually. And in each of those states, we're working with local grower groups or catchment management authorities to figure out, okay, what are the questions that can go out across these areas that can be helpful and inform these groups to have impact on what they're doing and direct the research that they do, direct their engagement efforts and so on. So those 2 on the side are things that we have in the survey. We want to understand the things that we can't change, such as demographics, how old people are, what gender people are, how many young people there are, and also how they're using information differently. And also on the right hand side there, you've got the knowledge that they have and the confidence that they have in particular technologies, and all of this leads into their management practices, which is what the Soil CRC, or the Soil Cooperative Research Centre, which is a nationally funded project, can do in all of the areas of research that it does, and what it can do better, as well as our little, smaller local groups that we're working with. So this is about better understanding people and what motivates them, who the different stakeholders are. In this regard, it's the farmers across these regional systems, identifying the things that groups or people can change, and then informing strategic planning for the local groups and for the Soil CRC that's informed by farmer needs. So it really is that transformational research, because it's feeding in before the research even begins. It's about going, okay, what do farmers need for research about soils? Isn't that a great place to start? So this is the co-design process. There's Matt Alexanderston, one of my PhD students, and this whole group here is looking at are involved in research on the Eyre Peninsula. Those ladies there are from the Landscape Board, or the old NRM group, and the rest are from the smaller farmer groups. So they wanted to know, we did some mind mapping. I love mind mapping, and they wanted to understand all about young farmers in the area. Their groups were coming together, so they wanted to understand the best model for what they were doing in the future. They wanted to understand how to improve farm resilience and how the people in the area can adapt better. So we put all this together into these 4 priority areas. We developed this all into our survey, and then we sent the survey out. It looked like this. It was a paper survey. It was basically a census, meaning it went to every rural property landholder with over 10 hectares in the whole Eyre Peninsula. It was about 1,200, and they came back. But most people own 2 properties, we found, so we got about 30% back. So the first thing we did is we wrote up a big report, and we stuck it on the website. Well, there we go. We've done all our research. Great. Next thing, right? Not at all. We had more to do. We needed to engage. Who are our different stakeholders? Well, so our with the grower group. So this was the broad thing. We wanted to send this out for farmers in the region. So 4 pages on generally what we found, and we made that available on the website of our partners and sent it out and said, here you go. This is an overview of what you farmers across the Eyre Peninsula said in the survey. Great. And we did a more targeted version of that, which was specifically for the groups that we were partnering with. So they're an important stakeholder. They're also helping to fund the project. We said, these are all the things that your partners want to see from you moving into the future. And I can show that to you because it was all nice stuff. Like, growers generally love them, which is great. The other approach, so this is an infographic. This is actually a big long thing that I've cut up here for you, and this is being used for a whole range of things. I saw CRC is putting it on their website. Our local partners used it to present at Field Day last week. So there's lots of different approaches for this, and turning complex information into nice little diagrams like this takes ages. But once we've got a model, we can do this for each survey. So it's starting to all come together because we're now doing the 4th survey of 6, so we're getting there. And we presented all the findings at the local partner strategic planning day, and we tweeted about it. So that goes out beyond in the broader community. The Soil CRC can share the tweets and all sorts of things. So we found lots of things about climate change. We also found out about what the top soil issues were. So this was really important, and this is really important for the future work that we're doing. So what are the key things that really are important to farmers? That's what the research shows around engaging farmers in and getting people to actually do the things that scientists and governments are spending gazillions of dollars in funding. It's actually around saying, well, what are the issues that are important to farmers? So there we go. There's the top 4. And then we found out, okay, well, relating to these issues, what practices were people doing? Relating to that, what's their confidence in those practices and what's their knowledge of those practices? So that's the erosion one. Next one was actually all 3 together because they're very linked. Low biological activity, low organic carbon, and declining nutrients. And we found that there are less activities really happening around in the last 5 years, what people have done. And it was quite low knowledge of the production benefits of putting on non-chemical soil supplements, and some knowledge of how to build soil carbon is 58%. And then soil data, so actually doing soil testing. So a lot of this stuff we can't tell if there's change if farmers aren't testing. So we found that only 49% of farmers are actually doing any soil testing at all, and that there wasn't very strong knowledge around how to actually do that to prepare a nutrient budget for the farm to figure out what they're going to put on it. So this is all the stuff that we found out. We presented this back for the strategic plan to be able to have real input. But there's some really important things in there. And highlights of what where areas that group can work on. I mean, in terms of erosion, only 42% knew how to establish perennial pastures. Only 26% knew anything much at all about or claimed to self-report knowledge of the extent of and type of biological activity in their soils, and only 46% were really confident doing soil testing. So those things are really important for research organisations to know because they can help to target efforts, but also confidence in things, production benefits, just to can really help that strategic planning. So you've got the goals, and then you set up your engagement strategy. This can create practice change and hopefully address the issue that we're all here to try and address as scientists. So this is all the things that the CRC are doing. So new mechanisms for financially rewarding management. So mechanisms and structures for rewarding good soil stewardship. Solutions, that's around a whole range of biological things. I know Terry Rose is involved in that. Biological solutions, looking at roots, perennial crops, whole range of things. Ways to measure them, that's nice, but let's make sure farmers are measuring things at all. And new widgets, so that's the e-nose and the magic spade. So some really great things there. So that's just to summarize. It's a really quick insight into what we're doing with the Soil CRC. So really just trying to give you some nice examples of the research that we're doing, and there's a few extra readings there as well if you're interested. Some of the work that I've published on engaging science and different approaches that I've used on a small scale. I've also done it for whole local government areas, and when the whole community really is a stakeholder when you're making a decision like whether to develop a whole new extractive industry in an area. So engaging people in science is really, really important, but also you need to understand that there's going to be so many different stakeholders, and each of those stakeholder groups are going to have different engagement approach needs. So you've got to think about how you're going to reach out to those different people. And for this for this subject, it's really about just getting started and getting you thinking about that. And as your first this first assessment, you're going to be thinking about, okay, well, in this assessment, you'll be thinking, oh, who are the stakeholders? Think of a couple of different groups, go online, have a think about what their different views might be. And then later on, it's going to be about, for that team project, it's going to be, okay, well, who is it that we want to engage in this issue, and therefore, how are we going to do it? So there you go. Thank you so much for listening to these examples of engaging science, and I look forward to seeing how engaging you all will become. So thank you very much for watching.